Hi everyone. So today's video, how to take care of yourself. Probably the most foundational and important step in the 4 crucial steps to really align yourself with and take advantage of change in the world today. Taking care of yourself has always been important, but in the past it was mainly about survival and being strategic. So you took care of yourself, you took care of business. Now it's becoming even more important so that you thrive rather than survive, and particularly thrive as the unique individual you are. Now for me, I've found the most powerful way of getting to the bottom line of what you really need in your life is through the numerology. Now I came across numerology 30 years ago, had no previous experience with it at all, was brought up and trained in geology and geophysics and science, taught maths and physics as well. So, when I came across numerology, it was a point in my life where I was looking for, what do I need to do with myself? And now I realise it was about taking care of myself. And I came across numerology and I thought, yeah, that's great, but it's fluffy. Coming from a scientific background, they'd say things like, your birth date represents your life path number. And I'd go, what the hell does that mean, on a practical level? So in 3 months, with no previous experience, I found I had a gift with numbers, and I literally tore numerology apart and rebuilt it and created what I call the numerology of the future. And now, 30 years later, after dealing with thousands of clients over 30 years all around the world, the thing that I realise this does is it gets right down to the bottom line of what you need to take care of yourself. So let me give you a quick example of that so you've got a sense of how it works and on what depth it works. And to come along with me in this, I'd suggest grab a piece of paper, put this on pause if you need to, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and then come back and follow me by writing down your birth date in full as well. So, simple example, my birth date, 5th of December, 5/12/1948. Now, most numerologists would add that up in a variety of ways, but the simplest way is just add all the numbers up one after the other, 5, 1, 2, 1, 9, 4, 8. And then you get 30, I think, and that 3 and 0 reduces down to 3. If I added up a different way, you'd get 39, and the 3 and 9 would equal 12, and 1 and 2 equals 3. So you get a number 3. And when I first did this and looked at numerology, people would say, oh, you're a number 3. And that used to irritate me because I'm not. I'm a human being. I'm not a number. Right? And I looked at it from a scientific perspective and said, look, in computers, in science and whatever, the number on its own is just a symbol. But when you clearly attach that number to a location or a certain position, when you understand what that number describes, then it gives you clear and powerful information about whatever it is. Think of an address just on its own. If I told you my address was 2301, it wouldn't help you at all. But if I gave you the street and the suburb and the country, then you'd know exactly where I live. So first thing I looked at is, what does a birth date, and we'll use a birth date, you can use it for names and all sorts of other things as well, but we'll use a birth date. What does it describe? And one thing happens on the day you were born. You separate physically from your mother and become physically independent. And 2, you take your first action as an individual, which is your first breath. And that sets the pattern of how you act as an individual from that point onwards. So I look at a birth date and I say birth dates give you information about how you act as an individual, and they give you bottom line information, because numbers, Jung wrote this on the last page of the last book he ever wrote, whereas numbers are the purest symbols of archetypal energies or archetypal energies. In other words, they give us symbol or give us access to information at the most basic level of how we are created, of how we live. So that was useful, knowing that I'm a number 3 and that I'm good at communicating. But within the numbers, the 12 behind it, I found numbers that would really identify what I needed for that to work, for the 12 and the 3 to work, the 30, whatever number whichever way you add it up. And I became really clear. It was as practical as I need two things: to be connected with the energies of nature and the forces of nature. So I work with crystals a lot. Why? Because I'm a crystal freak? No, they connect me with the energies of nature and the forces of nature. Going out on the beach, going into the forest, all those sort of things. Even in New York, looking out the window at the clouds. Great, connects you to the energies of nature. Also, deep, relaxed diaphragmatic breathing really helps me. So I take a deep breath when I'm communicating, and my communication becomes more focused. So that's one thing I need. And you can identify what you need to act consciously. But then I went, you know what, numbers, there's something missing here. And I realized they weren't using the numbers that weren't included in the birth date. The missing numbers, or the numbers between 1 and 9 that aren't in your birth date. And it reminded me of the Zen painters who would look at the space between the leaves. They would look at the invisible space as being just as important as the leaves themselves. So in my birth date, there's no 3, there's no 6, there's no number 6, and there's no number 7. So when they added those numbers up, it gave me another number, 16, that reduces 1 and 6 equals 7. And that number describes an invisible way of how I act as an individual. And I thought about this, and the more I thought about it, I said, the number that I get, the 3, that describes how I act physically, consciously, and subconsciously. The number 7 describes how my energy field acts and what it needs, and how my unconscious mind, the most powerful and most conscious part of me, operates. And the more I went into this, and I've done this with thousands and thousands of clients over 30 years, deadly accurate in terms of describing them, how they operate, and what they need to operate at their best. Now, the other thing I did was look at how the two numbers integrate by looking at the difference between them. 3 and 7, the difference is 4. And that describes the environment, the domain, you might say, that I operate best in. For instance, before, when I'm at peace with myself, golden. If I'm not at peace, if I'm not grounded, if I don't take my time, it doesn't work. I don't access the full power of who I am. Now, I've applied this to everything from literally helping people improve their golf swing, to their businesses, their relationships, to their spirituality, over and over again. And it's really, really accurate about the things that you must have in your life. Look, you can do all the seminars in the world, you can do all the therapies, all the various practices out there, but if these basic things that you need aren't taken care of, if you don't give them to yourself as your gift to yourself, all the other stuff is much, much harder. And when you do give them to yourself, it works much more easily, and much more of a flow to it. And moving into the future, as we are doing now, in a world full of change, the need to take care of yourself on that level, at a basic level, is so important. Because when you can do that, you can access your real power and blossom in this world as the real individual that you're meant to be here. So if you want to learn more about that, or you'd like to know more about it, contact me. cp@houseofdreams.com is my email address with 3 Z's. Feel free to send me questions or further queries about this. In the next video, I'm going to look at how you make decisions. Absolutely crucial for moving through the world correctly as yourself. But if you're not taking care of yourself, none of that will matter. Okay? So think about that. Look at it in your life. What do you really need? And if you need any help from me, you know where to find me. Talk to you in the next video.